Hello and welcome to today's live stream, which is going to be a bit less festive than the usual ones. My name is Frank Lavinia. You can catch me at the following URLs, and soon to be a fourth one, actually. Um, so many of you don't know, or maybe you do know. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you knew this. I am a survivor of the attack on the World Trade Center. I was supposed to be at 4 World Trade that morning, which, if you didn't know, is one of the small buildings at the base of the tower. So I have this here, and I talk about this a lot, right? I even have this as a reminder of in my home office. Uh, I could survive anything, right? I could survive that. Um, I was supposed to be here, um, but as fate or divine intervention would have it, I was actually here when the South Tower fell, which would have been about 24 years ago, about a minute ago. Um, and I have pictures because, and this is going to make conspiracy theorists go wild. Why did you have a camera with you? Because at the time I was an avid digital photographer, and this was still a relatively new tech. And I had just moved back from Europe, where I just got into the habit of taking my camera with me to take pictures of cool things I saw. This as part of the initial therapy for kind of recovering from all this. Basically, I um, took pictures that day, right? And then as part of, I think I have about 10, 15 pictures. So I lived halfway between the World Trade Center and uh, halfway between the World Trade Center and the South Street Seaport, right? So, or yeah, I think it was still the Fulton Fish Market then. And in fact, this is about as close as I got. And then the police kept pushing us back. I had no idea what was going on. I literally had no idea about planes or the Pentagon. Information was very sparse to get, and there was no social media really to speak of at the time. There certainly was no mobile internet, really. And even then, all the cell phone towers were jammed. Um, so I had a Sony Mavica, and I had a Sony Mavica camera, and it would save to a floppy disk. And yes, this is a long time ago. And even then, that was towards the end of the the lifespan of floppy disks. Um, and I took this picture, and as it was saving, it would take about 15 seconds to save. This is when I heard a loud crack and a boom, and I saw the South Tower falling towards me. So if you ever look at the imagery and the videos of this is the South Tower, this is the North Tower. The South Tower would tipped initially in a particular direction, which was the direction I was in, right? So basically north and east of the complex. Very terrifying, very horrible day. But the years that followed were also very terrible. Um, yeah, so this is some pictures from my apartment. And I did a whole write up and stuff like that. It was very therapeutic, honestly. So this was a picture from my balcony. That's I think it used to be called the Millennium Tower or the Millennium Hotel. You could see these little lights here. That's actually, I think that would have been for World Trade, actually. So I had line of sight almost to the office I was supposed to be in. Um, yeah, and it certainly changed my life. This is me going back to clear out my apartment, which had been, I had way less gray hair then. Um, Yep. That's you can see the haze there. The smell was just god awful. And if you go to the site, it's at franksworld.com/WTC. I don't have a link off the main site. I might change that. I keep it there. It's a very old design site. It's basically the core of it was actually built in Photoshop because Photoshop had a give it a directory of files and it would basically create like a thumbnail page. Um, and like kind of interactive. So that was the core of it. Then I think I added some Dreamweaver components at the top. Um, but the short of it is the following 3-4 years were way worse than the actual day of, right? If you were a survivor, let me look up the story here. I should have queued it up. Dust. If you look at the story of the Dust Lady, it's just really sad what happened to her. And I know a lot of people who were survivors had a very and she was in Bayonne too. Um, this was the picture that made her famous. Um, and she was covered in dust. Everybody was covered in dust that day. Um, and you know, she had cancer. Um, and she just really just had a horrible post 9/11 life. Um, and she herself said she never recovered from the trauma of the attack. Um, she obviously had some kind of addiction issues. And I have to say that the people who survived the attack have largely gone ignored. And my heart goes out to them. I can 100% empathize with you, anyone in that. Usually, when the stories fade from the news, people forget. But the trauma of those directly impacted um, is lives on, right? And I know a lot of people that after the attack did develop substance abuse problems, health problems, things like that. And it really is only by the grace of God and my family support that I pulled out of that spiral. And yeah. And so all I can say is support structures are important. If you rely on society at large to help you, you are out of luck. In fact, it was like 3 days after 9/11, I got this nasty gram from the town of Denville, the township of Denville in New Jersey. And they basically wanted to impound my car because I had an unpaid parking ticket, which was my mom actually had the car. And I'm like, why am I paying this why are you coming after me? When I was out of the country, like I have actual proof I was living overseas. Like, well, you're still responsible for it. I'm like, anyway, that was my first encounter with no one cares about the survivors. Um, and as the years went on, um, yeah, as the years went on, um, it was pretty clear that the people who lost relatives, which is terrible, but you would hear them on the news saying like, $2 million settlement wasn't enough. That didn't hit well. That didn't hit well, right? It was very obnoxious for someone who, I lost my apartment, my job, my office building, and actually my job a few months later. Like to just lose everything in one day, and you never really walk away with the same sense of physical security after an event like that. And looking at the news, um, looking at kind of both internal and foreign events, like remember the only one that can protect you is you. The only one really looking out for you is you and a close knit group of people. Um, so as I look out on my, you know, life since then, it's definitely gotten better. But I attribute the grace of God and my family support structure that I had, and I was very lucky to have. Um, because there's a lot of people that are not as famous as Dust Lady, and I don't want to call her Dust Lady. That's not fair. Her real name was Marcy Borders, and she was just a legal assistant at Bank of America, right? And in the North Tower, right? And I'm not sure if she was up top or like in one of the offices or in the banks that were in the mall, the basement of the Trade Center, um, which had some of the best stores like in the area. Um, okay, so she was at the 81st floor of the North Tower. God love her, man, because it would have been, yeah, so the plane hit 12 stories above her. This is a woman who's seen some things. And I pray for her, I pray for her family, and I pray for anyone that has basically been ignored by society and the media. And for those of you experiencing trauma, whether it's at this scale or something smaller scale, um, the one thing I learned from that era in my life was you either process trauma or it processes you. So mental health is health, and you need to process the trauma and work through it and find a way to live with it, adapt to it, um, or it will destroy you. It'll eat you from the inside out. And yeah, that's all I gotta say. I'm very grateful and thankful for the life I have now. I would not have. Um, there's hundreds of ways this could have gone worse. Thousands of ways this could have gone worse. I know a lot of people. I used to work with a guy who was a big time health nut. Wouldn't drink, wouldn't smoke. I don't think he ate meat. When I saw him last, he was a chain smoker, had developed an alcohol problem, and his life basically unraveled from there. Um, yeah, I mean, so on this day when we honor the people who died, spare a thought for the ones who survived. All right, so I'm going to end the stream now.